Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Meteor Kaiser back here again with part 4 of the Arsene only run of Persona 5 Royal. On the last part we were able to get our way through Kanashiro's palace, and in this part we're going to make our way all the way up to Futaba's. Now again, ground rules. We've gone over this previously, but just in case you haven't seen the previous parts, which you should if you haven't done already. The rules are simple. Only persona we can use in battle is Arsene. We can use other personas if it's for confidant reasons. It was bad in the last part, but it got even worse this part, so you'll see why I cut off a limit on spam grinding. So after this part we're going to be cutting down on that spam grinding, but I'll show you why I did a bad on this part. Anyways, as always, before we jump in, I'm just going to mention, if you guys haven't done so already and you like the content, go ahead and subscribe. It'll greatly help out the channel. Appreciate that. And also, in case you didn't know, I did start up a Discord recently. So if you're interested in joining, hanging out, talking about whatever, just go ahead and click the link in the description. Alright, and without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into part 4, shall we? Alright, picking up right where we left off on the 23rd of June. We have completely defeated Kanashiro, got his counterfeit money out of the palace, and now we've got to wait until the change of heart happens. So as usual, I go through and try and knock out as much confidant stuff as I possibly can. On the 24th, I begin my confidant with Makoto herself, which is the Priestess Arcana. And the other Arcana that I haven't really started on yet either is Yusuke's, which is the Emperor Arcana. Now Yusuke's is a little bit more different than everyone else's, right? So you know those skill cards. Yusuke has the ability to duplicate skill cards if you leave them with him for a while. So say for example you get a Megiddo and you're like, oh shit, I want to use that on another persona. You'll go ahead and go to Yusuke, give it to him for a few days, he'll come back with it copied. As much he was against counterfeits, he's making his own, which is kind of ironic. But it's not going to be useful for us because literally the only persona I want to learn any skills is Arsene, so it doesn't matter if I use off the one-off cards on him. On the 27th, we head over to the church in Kanda, and the reason we do this is because there's a girl named Hifumi here, who is basically a really high-level shogi player. I don't know if she's a pro or not, but she's a high-level shogi player. But in order to interact with her, our charm actually needs to be suave, which I think is like rank 3 or rank 4 for charm. So we've got a little bit of time before we're going to be able to talk to her. But that's good that came up because I was talking about why we need to increase our little social stats for things like that, because certain people will only talk to you when you've gotten a certain level of social stat. Anyway, I continue to use this opportunity to do a little bit of lockdown training on Arsene because I know I'm not going to be in a palace for a very long time, so I'm like, alright, let's go ahead and use some of our incenses. So with the lockdown, I haven't mentioned this, but with the lockdown, if you use an item which is an incense, you're going to be able to add a couple of stat points in whatever incense category it is. Like say the incense is magic, you know, you'll get 1 to 3 points depending on the level of item you use in magic, which is pretty nice. Nice little additive bonus there. On the 29th, we have another confidant day with Kasumi, and immediately after that, I attempt to go for an Akechi day. The same thing with Akechi is you need to have like rank 3 in knowledge and like rank 3 in charm, and I have one of those two things, not the charm. So we need to get ourselves up to suave as soon as we can. So I'll be working on that a bit more than I thought I would. So a good way to get some points into charm or any specific one that you want is going to be through DVDs or games. DVDs we can buy if we've gotten a DVD player, and we'll just watch them in our room. Gives us like 2 to 3 points. And games, you have to complete a little mini game within the game, and if you do it correctly, you're going to be able to get a few more. You'll get like 2 stat points, whereas if you fail, you only get 1. So technically you could fail over and over again if you've got nothing better to do, but I don't really want to waste time. So one thing that I have not mentioned that's pretty important, so if you ever come home to Le Blanc one day and you see a piece of paper just scattered on a table, that is a crossword puzzle. If you do the crossword puzzle, you'll get a free point in knowledge without having to use up any time. So it's definitely worth just doing it. If you don't know the answers, Google it, yay! On the 3rd, we finally get started on Hifumi's social confidant thingy-majiggy because I was able to get my charm up, and she's going to be very useful because basically you're going to be learning shogi from Hifumi, and Hifumi will teach you certain tactics that you can use in battle. Like one of them that's pretty useful is you can swap out party members on anyone's turn, and then the other is it doesn't use an action point, and that's super useful. So like say, I don't know, Morgana's in your party, but Morgana ends up doing crap. You could be like, all right, let me switch over to Yusuke, something like that, you know? But the other, a little tidbit of information in case you never knew this, Hifumi was supposed to be a party member, but they scrapped that idea like towards the beginning of the final production of Persona 5. I think they just didn't have enough time, or I don't know what the situation about that was, but still, she was supposed to be a party member, and it's kind of sad that she wasn't, but it is what it is. On the 7th, I finally start another Confidant. I'm starting Oya's officially, which is the Devil Arcana. Now, the Devil Arcana is going to be useful if we want to lower the security rank inside of the dungeon, which is nice, so makes life a little bit easier traveling throughout a palace. And also, if you do Oya's Confidant, you'll be getting Charm every time, so it's quite useful to do. However, I don't really care as much about it because it's Oya, and you got to pick your waifus, you know. But anyway, we blitz through the rest of the days and make our way to the 9th, when we heard that Kaneshiro has turned himself in. The principal calls Makoto into his office and is like, why didn't you do this? I'm not going to give you a letter of recommendation to college. And then Makoto's just like, haha, go fuck yourself. And we're like, hey, Lamau. Fuck you, principal. Fucking egghead ass. Immediately that evening, we go to a bar with Akechi. Don't ask questions. But the bar, it's a jazz bar, right? It's pretty cool. If you go there with a certain person, you'll be able to increase, your normal stats, confidant stats with that person. And you'll also be able to, depending on what drink you buy, you'll be able to increase the stats of the persona itself. And this actually carries on over through games, which is really cool. So New Game Plus, you'll be able to get whatever stat boasts. Like, for example, you take An and you're going to want to give her a drink that has to do with magic. And it's pretty cool. It's good to do if you really don't have much else to do. So, and the OST in here is beautiful. On the following day, the 10th of July, we start a study session because we want to get, stuff done before summer vacation. And deciding to make plans on a sort of fireworks festival. The 11th is a weird ass day because we essentially catch Kasumi on the way home, and Kasumi's like, hey, do you want to go get a drink? And then Akechi's like, hey, can I join? And so we basically talk about all sorts of things, the Phantom Thieves mainly, as usual. Kasumi's like, she has a very good opinion on the Phantom Thieves, saying like, hey, they're helpful right now, but in the long run they're going to have a really bad influence on the people because it's just gonna be reliant too much on the Phantom Thieves for literally anything, and it's not gonna change anything specifically. It's just gonna be like, oh hey, there's an enemy in the sky, who do we summon? Batman, that type of shit. That was a weird analogy, but she had a fair point. We see Makoto and Maruki having their little talk. Everyone's getting that nice little therapy. Starting on the 13th, leading up all the way to the 16th, we have our exams. So not too bad, just time gets skipped through those days. Just gotta answer your questions. We have a little conversation with Maruki ourselves. And if you really read into these conversations, they're going to be a little bit of foreshadowing, more towards especially the end of the Confidant, but this is just a talk. Cool day happens next. On the 17th, we have a little bit of a boys' day, and this is a royal exclusive again, where we just go to the summer festival type place and we get kebabs and we get interviewed, but then we're like, oh, we probably shouldn't have our faces on TV, so Ryuji says some weird ass shit and then it scares off the interviewer. At the end, we sort of go to this construction area where we meet up with Kasumi, and Kasumi and us have a little lunch dinner thing. The next day, we go to the fireworks festival where there's rain happening, and then the boys are all like, rain makes clothes see-through, he. The boys being perverted. And we keep getting these little cut-ins of this girl in a room sort of listening in on their conversation. And now we get introduced to a new enemy of Medjed. Medjed this is all cyber hacking type shit. Medjed is basically like, hey, we're gonna reveal who the Phantom Thieves are if y'all don't stop. So we're basically trying to figure out how the hell we're gonna deal with Medjed. Medjed's basically like an overseas hacking group, I guess sort of like Anonymous. We start getting introduced to this mysterious character named Alibaba through texts. And Alibaba is basically like, throughout the courses of a couple of days, they ask us to perform a change of heart on a certain person, and that certain person is Futaba Sakura. But when they learn that we specifically have to meet with the individual, because we have to steal the hearts directly, it's going to be a little difficult. They call off the deal. However, we keep looking into it, and by the evening of the 24th, we were able to figure out a little bit of stuff through a conversation a couple of days earlier with Sai, who shows up, and Sojiro. It turns out that Futaba is Sojiro's daughter, and so in order to figure out a bit more on that 24th day, we actually sneak into Sojiro's house. And we actually run into Sakura for a brief moment, but then Sojiro catches us, and we have a talk with Sojiro. He's a lot nicer about it than I thought he would be, considering we kind of broke into his house. And we also learned that Alibaba and Futaba are the same person. And we also want to help her because she can help us stand up against Medjed. Because if she can do this with her phone, she could probably help us with the hackers. And basically we have to interview her to try and figure out what her keywords are. And we figure out that this will be her tomb. So we put in the term tomb, and the input is accepted. We basically make our way into the middle of a giant desert. Yay, pyramids. So we briefly go in there in our casual clothes because we're not seen as an enemy by Futaba quite yet. Futaba keeps having these dreams of her. Futaba keeps having these lucid hallucinations of what we can only describe as her mother, Wakuba, who we learned has actually dealt with cognitive science before. Basically, she committed suicide, and so that's why Sojiro was just a friend of Wakuba's, and Sojiro took over as the parent because Sakura was gonna have to live with like an uncle or an aunt or something, but Sojiro was like, nah, fuck this. And so that's why in like the confidant with Sojiro, the Hierophant one, it's the uncle trying to come back and win custody, but he only wants it for money. And that's sort of the whole thing with the confidant. So anyway, on the 26th, we start buying some more items in order for us to make our way into the palace. So we talked to Shadow Futaba, and she's actually very, very helpful. This is a completely different palace, where the ruler of the palace is not necessarily hostile to us. It's more like she's hostile to herself, which is weird. We still have to fight shit in the palace, but the shadow itself is not the problem. The shadow's actually quite nice. It's like, okay, now you need to go here if you want to pass by. So basically, in order for us to get through, first we have to head to the bordering town off in the distance, because there's a bandit over there that stole something from Shadow Futaba, or the pyramid, I guess. So we make our way over there, and there's a bunch of relatively easy enemies at this point. Some Sandman, some Garudas, nothing too terrible. But then we run into this bandit, and the bandit's basically like, catch me if you can. So what you've got to do is you've got to basically lead it into this open court field area in which you could fight against it. It's a pretty easy fight, not too bad. The Raging Bird God, I believe, has some serious wind power to him, but I just hit him with some mid-level spells and we're good. Garudine is quite scary for us to see at this point, but thank God it's not like Ma Garudine or anything like that. Anyway, we have got back the stolen treasure, and we go back and give it to Futaba. Futaba's like, oh cool, here. And then we actually she does the whole pitfall thing where we basically get sent to the bottom of the pyramid, and we have to escape like this quicksand trap in the middle, which we do. However, this might be a blessing in disguise, because we can find a path above ground from here. It's a little bit confusing going up, because in order to go up, you basically have to climb on top of these coffins. It's very Egyptian looking coffins, and make your way to the top. Basically, if you head through the underground corridor and the underground cavern, you'll make your way up to the surface. Now, the only thing to be careful about is there's two annoying enemies. There's Foth, which is this monkey-looking, this white monkey-looking thing, who has Megiddo. And now, by this point, Megiddo is pretty scary. You have no way to defend against almighty attacks, really, so just be careful. The other thing is, and is more scary, is the hard enemy of this dungeon, just like the last one was Takemi Kazuchi. This one is Anubis, ruler of the scales, level 34. Anubis is really super scary because it does not have any weaknesses, and it can also use high level insta-kill spells. Now there's light and there's dark spells. You have your standard like Aha, Aga, Agon, which are like just regular heavy curse attacks, which Arsene can learn. Remember, we had Aha in the very beginning, that light curse attack. We also have like Koha, Koga, and Kogaon, which are the light versions of that. But then you have insta-kill spells of Hama, Hama-on, Mudo, and Mudon, which are very, very scary because they're insta-kills. I actually wipe out once against the Anubis. We have some null curse charms that we got from the DLC stuff, so I just slapped that on Joker, because as long as Joker doesn't die, that's the main important thing. But anyway, I slowly make my way through this area, and we fight against a Mott as we're heading out. Now, unlike in SMT3, Mott isn't that scary here. Mott has a weakness to Garula, or Garu attacks in general, which is good because I have put in a Garu spell card on Arsene, so we're doing alright. Mott isn't too scary, it's just kind of powerful. We actually are able to finish it off with Ryuji and Makoto's little Showtime attack. Anyway, the next area that we reach to is the Chamber of the Sarcophagi. And so another running theme in this dungeon are going to be basically statues of Anubis with a gem type thing, which you basically have to move it from one location to the other. And if you move it from one location to the other, you will get like certain doors open. With one of Kasumi's ranks, we got an ability to use the grappling hook as an offensive item, so we can attack from range, which is good because it'll like give certain enemies stats conditions as well, so it's very good to use that. But I thought I'd just bring that up. Anyway, this is going to be a running theme where we get to the end of a certain area and we basically use a little light beam, and that's going to activate the door to the next area. So next we have the Chamber of Rejection. We're fighting against a few more, I won't say difficult enemies, just more higher level enemies. Once we've solved the puzzle with the gems and we're able to get our way past that little spiky trap coming out from the floor, we're able to make our way into the Chamber of Guilt, the second main area of the pyramid. I mean, technically we're at the end, it's technically the third, because Underground Cavern, Rejection, now Guilt. Now Guilt's thing is, to get by, we basically have to light up certain colors of these floating orbs. There's little patterns that will say like, alright, so A1010. Basically you have to, 1 means on, 0 means off. So you have to put on the right ones and turn off the wrong ones. And so I always forget which side starts, like which side is the starting side. So if one side doesn't work, just flip it to the reverse. And then when that's activated, basically you're going to be able to press that slab button and it should activate something. In this case, it activates a bunch of fucking boulders. And we climb across all of those boulders. We make our way to this room where the light protection thing is at, but we all have to solve this puzzle. Another one of these puzzle things. And this one looks like Wakuba jumping in front of a car and Futaba crying. I forgot to mention the last one, which was her like sitting on a throne and a bunch of people waiting on her. So my dumbass completely forgot about our favorite things, the will seeds. So the red, so again, my bad, we're going a little bit out of order. Okay, so going back to the Chamber of Rejection. Alright, so this is where the red one is. So in the square room, which is another square inside of it on the map, climb to your right and you'll find the will seed room unguarded. Walk to the sealed door to pick up the red will seed. So that one's pretty simple. The green one is actually where we are in the Chamber of Guilt. This one's not very hidden at all, right? So you'll run through some low corridors, the shadows inside, sealed doors just in this hallway, not hidden by any obscure platforming. It's literally, this one is literally on your path. So you know that door that we just opened up with the puzzle, with the blue, with the on and off thing in the back, you know how, so basically we had a couple, right? The first one brought all of those boulders back and we were able to complete the area, right? So that's good. The area is important. But there was another one, which was the other side. So one puzzle you only had to open up like the blue side, and the other one you had to do both the A and the B side. And it opens up that back door room. And so basically you just head to the back of that room and you've got your stuff. You can miss it if you just don't do that extra puzzle, but that's on you, Chief. Alright, we've made our way out of that one and we're into the Chamber of Sanctuary, which is the last area of this dungeon. The only things to really know about this area are there are hidden switches behind coffins, so make sure you don't forget that. Make sure you're using third eye because it'll show you. A lot of this area is pretty straightforward. We basically have to just climb higher and higher. We have to fight against another Mott, which isn't too surprising. We have to take The good thing about this orb, we have to take one orb with us in order to access the next area, but the good thing with this orb is you don't really have to bring it back. You just have to follow the path. Towards the this is like the very end. The will seed is pretty obvious in this one. So the blue will seed is near the end. In the sanctuary, in the stream, you'll need to grapple around to reach the exit. Grapple up to the top of the room near the green pyramid. You'll find the final sealed door guarded by a powerful shadow. And in this case, this powerful shadow is... Oh god, why don't I remember your name? It looks like Mott. It's not Mott. It's level 68. Why do I know it? No, I mean like you get it when you're level 68. Or no, you get it when you're level 86. Never mind. I know exactly what this thing is, but I don't remember its name. It's called Decadent False God. Decadent False God. It's weak to Agi. I forgot the name. Y'all can let me know though. But anyway, we get that. We get the blue wheel seed, and we're done with the Seeds of Wrath. Whereas we make our way to the very end, we have one more light puzzle to solve. This one is basically Futaba just grabbing onto Wakubas, but there's a private do not enter sign, and that basically means that's it. We can't do anything else. We have to go back, leave the palace, and then figure something out in the real world. But my dumbass, I do so much grinding for some stupid reason. My dumbass is just grinding, and more grinding. Basically, to open up the door in the palace, we have to get Futaba herself to open up her room to us. Because of all of this, all of the trauma with her mother, she's basically gone into a, I don't know in English, a shut-in state, a hikikomori state, where she does not talk to anyone. The only person she'll ever interact with is Sojiro, and that's why she's talking through her phone. That's why she's always bundled up in her room. But we basically had to get Sakura herself to open up the door to everyone. And she does. So we're able to make our way to the very end area of the palace, the Chamber of Emptiness. This is a pretty easy area, and I would definitely recommend for this one conserving your SP as much as possible, because you're going to go straight from this into a boss fight. What I was talking about with the whole grinding too much, bro, I literally spent a good 30 minutes just straight grinding. I got way too high in the level department, but I'm like, whatever. But anyway, once we reach the very plateau, the apex, the tippity top, where we can't get stop of the pyramid, instead of our normal thing where we have to fight against the shadow version of the palace owner, which would be like Shadow Futaba, no, in this situation we fight against Shadow Wakuba, and she's basically a human with a sphinx's body, so pretty terrifying. When she's flying around, she can't take physical damage. You can hit her with guns and with magic, but that's it. But basically, this little first bit is a little scripted, so you don't have to do much damage. Just defend, keep yourself alive a lot. Futaba actually accidentally is able to stumble her way into her own palace, which is something that shouldn't happen, but it does anyway. Futaba does her thing, she awakens, but Futaba is a little bit different. Futaba is like the Fuka or the Rise from the other game. She is our assistant Persona user, so she'll be helping us with the navigation sides of things. So anyway, with her little powers, we were able to fight against Shadow Wakuba. So the strategy with the fight, right, is to have a few people just lower her defense, her attack, just start attacking. By a certain point, you're going to have a ballista that opens up, and you're going to send one of your party members to go launch the ballista. And in this case, I use Yusuke. I don't believe you necessarily have to distract her or anything by doing a certain amount of damage, but the ballista does a decent chunk of damage, and it brings Wakuba into a situation where you can just start physically attacking and lowers her defense a shit ton. So anyway, you just want to rinse and repeat, get her to knock down. Even without the ballista, she'll just come down after a powerful attack and just rest, or what looks like resting. But anyway, we're able to defeat Shadow Wakuba with, honestly, not really willpower, but just over-leveling. The palace starts crumbling immediately because the palace owner was in the palace, like our physical copy was, so it fucked everything up. So we basically had to leave the palace like immediately. So we used Morgana's cat car version to run down a pyramid and get our asses out of there. We make our way back into the real world. I don't think there really is a treasure this time. But anyway, Futaba is completely passed out. We don't know what's wrong. We call up Sojiro, and Sojiro's like, this happens. Because she did a bunch of stuff. She's very, very weak. So she'll be out of it for like basically a while. So we have to do our usual, which is wait until the end, until the Medjet attack is supposed to happen, essentially. But anyway, guys, that's going to bring us to the end of part 4. And damn, we still have 25 days left to do stuff. So in the next part, we'll be getting our way through the rest of the days, just doing a bunch of stuff. And we'll be jumping into everybody's least favorite palace. And oh boy, am I excited for that. Okamoto's palace, that'll be fun. But until then, as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and peace!